Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a first impressions review of the new uemura CHROMATICS palette in Stone Neutrals. This is still a relatively new but limited edition palette, just like the rest of their CHROMATICS line. Don't quote me on this, but I feel like all of uemura's actual pre-assembled eyeshadow palettes are limited edition releases. So this includes their fun collaborations like the Pikachu or the One Piece collection, the Hello Kitty collaboration, which I actually have in front of me right here. Those designery fun collaborations, as well as the more serious artistry palettes, is how I would characterize the CHROMATICS line. Regardless of which camp they fall under, they seem to all be produced in limited quantities at the end of the day. And they all seem to be designed in Japan and made in Korea as well, for whatever reason. Again, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I feel like the only thing that is really prominent is their single pressed eyeshadow line, which has been around since forever, and you can purchase little custom palettes to house those in, which I never do because you guys know I am just not about that single eyeshadow life, okay? Ain't nobody got time. Plus, with inflation and everything, those are literally 2,500 yen a pop these days. I remember back in the day when they were 1,800 or 2,000 yen each, which is still way too much. So who is still out here buying single eyeshadows from uemura is the real question. I know there's a silent group of you out there that still exists, so this is your chance to show yourselves. See, this palette retails for 8,140 yen with tax, which is definitely a hefty price tag, but if you compare that with 2,500 yen for a single shadow, it starts to look like a really good deal, right? Almost a steal. And another positive thing, I guess, is that the eyeshadow pans in this palette are slightly larger than their standard eyeshadow singles pans. There's more product in them, so each pan has 1.7 grams of product in this palette as compared to their normal singles, which only have 1.4 grams. And actually, I think the Hello Kitty palette here followed their standard eyeshadow singles sizing. These are 1.4 grams each, and the CHROMATICS palettes have 1.7 grams, and you can see that it's obviously a completely different shape and style. So Stone Neutrals is the first palette that I ever purchased from the uemura CHROMATICS line. I'm a little bit surprised at myself, honestly, because as you can see, this is a very basic cool toned neutral palette, and if you have been following me lately, you'll know that I haven't really been feeling the cool tones lately. If anything, I feel like I am really quick to default to either pinks or really rich reddish brown, warm tones these days. I don't know, I just want to look and feel alive, I don't want to look like a corpse, which is what comes to mind nowadays when I think of more neutral or cooler toned eyeshadows, honestly. But I ended up deciding to purchase this after all because I figured at some point I will get the itch to do a cool toned eye look once again. It happens to the best of us, and I figure if anyone is going to do the cool toned neutrals thing well, it's gonna be uemura, right? Especially in a way that is really tailored to and complements Asian skin tones in particular. I feel like you're not going to get better than uemura. You just have to take one look at their Instagram page and look at the sheer variety of different Asian skin tones that they feature on their page and how flattering all of their products look on each different type, because Asian skin comes in all different shades and undertones as well. So yeah, I was really just placing my faith in that artistic legacy that uemura is known and respected and revered for in the Asian beauty community when I purchased this palette sight unseen. So this palette comes with 9 shadows in total, 3 melting mattes, 3 reflective metallics, 1 iridescent pearl, 1 prismatic, and 1 crushed stone. The prismatic shade in the middle, which is called Stone Neutral, was so soft and loose that a big chunk of the top layer just completely kind of crumbled under the pressure of my finger as I was swatching. And I guess I didn't press super lightly, so that's my bad, but I did use the same amount of pressure for all the shades in my swatches. However, none of the others really fell apart the way that Stone Neutral did, so just a note to be careful with the prismatic formula, as it seems to be a little more delicate and less firmly finely bonded together than the mattes and metallics. Overall, as you can see in this application footage right now, the eyeshadows were very finely milled, very blendable. The mattes in particular, they blended together with like no effort, almost too well. I had to go back in a couple of times with certain shades just to create more depth and dimension and not have it all look like one muddy color. But yeah, very buttery smooth, no patchiness, no fallout whatsoever with the mattes at least. The shimmery shades like the metallics and pearls and whatnot, I have to say, unfortunately, and I make this observation pretty much every time I review Shu Uemura eyeshadows, it's kind of my pet peeve, but I do have to say that I find I have much more trouble getting those formulas to actually stick onto my skin or my eyelids more so than the mattes. Part of that could be because I tend to always layer those types of metallic formulas on last, or at least when I've already laid down 2 or 3 matte shades, usually for my base color. Also, it could just be that that's just what happens when you have flatter eyelids like mine, where there's no deep socket for the shadows to really settle into. But that doesn't really make sense to me though, because most of the models that Shu Uemura use and feature have very flat eyelids as well, or even monolids, and they seem to have the shadows show up just fine. Granted, those looks are created by Shu Uemura's, professional makeup artists, which I definitely do not possess the talents of those people, so another possibility. But yeah, like that's part of the whole reason why I continue to support and stan this brand, even though their products are not always a complete hit out of the ballpark for me, is because they do insist on continuing to showcase that true Asian feature representation, the flat eyelids and the monolids. Anyway, going back to my experience applying these shadows from this palette, I feel like I'm left with the same dilemma each time. Like, do I have to wet my brush or add some more eyeshadow primer on top of my base shadows in order to bring out the reflectiveness of the shimmer shades? Or do I just lay down the shimmer shades first so that they can grip directly onto that initial layer of eye primer and then work the rest of the eye look around that? Either way, I feel like I honestly shouldn't have to do that much work for this price point at the end of the day, but you know what? At least it is consistent with pretty much every other eyeshadow palette that I've tried from Shu Uemura. All things considered, I was still very happy with the final look that I was able to turn out today. It's definitely very simple, but I feel like it has that glossy, polished, je ne sais quoi quality that only a Shu Uemura eyeshadow formulation can bring. I feel like I'm definitely living my 90s supermodel, cool-toned, brown, neutral makeup fantasy. Just a quick comment about the packaging. Overall, I do appreciate the sleek, simplistic nature of the palette. I think you can never go wrong with this type of a thin, compact, sophisticated layout. It appeals to all different kinds of demographics. The palette itself is just plastic material with a snap closure that's sturdy enough, and the abstract stone artwork on the front is perfect for the overall theme. I will say it does feel slightly a little bit cheap to me personally, again just considering the high price point. If you look closely, you'll notice that this is actually a clear window on the front here with, I think it's just a piece of paper, honestly, underneath that has the stone artwork printed on it. When I first saw the pictures online, I assumed that this part was an actual, like, how do I describe this? Like a slab of, not marble, but plastic or something. Like, even if it was a sticker, I expected when you turn the palette on its side like this, I expected it to kind of protrude a little bit, like a slab of material that has everything printed onto it, but it's actually just a clear plastic window. So the lettering, like the chromatics and the Shu Uemura, is printed on the actual window, but underneath it seems to be just a piece of paper with the stone motif on it. I don't know if that's being too nitpicky, but I just personally think that it would feel a little more luxe if it had just a solid slab of artwork on the cover. Wow, I do not know how to articulate what I want here. Okay, so like a gel nail. You know how everything is cured under that UV lamp thingy into one hard solid gel thing? I want that, except on the cover of this palette. So yeah, that's basically the end of my review. Like I mentioned earlier, I just wanted a good standard cool toned neutral palette that I could lean back on.
Lean back, lean back. Lean back, come on.
Especially if I wanted to incorporate pops of color into my makeup elsewhere other than my eyes. I felt like this palette would, without fail, provide me with the perfect, barely there but still polished looking neutral eye look that would juxtapose very nicely against a bold red lip or a brighter blush color. Today I just kept everything kind of neutral to really showcase the eyeshadow, but I did add a pop of red with my earrings here, and yeah, I'm happy to say that this palette really fit the bill for me personally. I cannot speak for other people or like non-Asian skin tones obviously, but color-wise and final effect-wise, I feel like the shadows did come out looking how I imagined against my skin tone and my particular undertones. I'm really satisfied with the overall look that I ended up with today, and I can't wait to play more with this palette. Hopefully it will become one of my staples in my collection. So I hope that was helpful for you if you were interested in or thinking about picking up this CHROMATICS Stone Neutrals palette. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!